Hello world, happy end of the year. Today I feel really called to talk about limerence and touching on the pattern of attracting unavailable people or partners in life. And I was doing processing this morning and also all of yesterday and just reflecting, when something like a situation happens in life and you feel that it is full of injustice or it's just unfair or it feels that way. um I was processing a lot of that yesterday and today, this morning, and feeling so much new clarity. And this little statement kept coming to my mind this morning, and I wrote it down in my journal too, but basically it was, I deserve balanced or equal give and take with people who show me love and appreciation and honoring. And I would love to break this down in front of this camera, what that means. So first of all, the first part of that sentence, equal give and take, might resonate with people who consider themselves as big givers, or at least in one-on-one close relationships, whether it's friendships or non-platonic connections. And this might very well be empaths as well, because empaths take on other people's feelings and feel them deeply and somehow make those feelings their own responsibility, which is very likely also a trauma response. So not to glorify that or anything. So balanced give and take. Fun fact about my astrology chart, my North Node, and in your chart, FYI, your North Node represents the lessons that your soul is meant to learn in this lifetime that it didn't learn enough of in previous lives. And it also serves as kind of a spiritual compass of how, or the direction in which your soul is meant to evolve towards and in what area. So my North Node is in my 7th house. 7th house is basically our house in the chart of partnerships, whether that is close one-on-one relationships, or even business partnerships. So what this means for me, it means a lot of things. I won't summarize everything, but one of the highlights would be that one of my lessons in this lifetime is to learn to take as much as I give in a close dynamic one-on-one relationship, or give as much as I take if I find that it's the other way around and there's an imbalance going the other way. And this effect is just further accentuated by my moon in the chart also being in my 7th house, and moon represents your emotional needs. So it's like people with their North Node and the moon in the 7th house, it's like the lesson is to basically not completely overgive in a close relationship or friendship, and to just take count, take count of like what's being given and what's being received, and making sure it's an equal balance. And also another tendency for people with these chart placements is that they can lose them or like make someone their whole world if they want to. So I would say like pretty much my whole life, I do love to please the other person in whatever one-on-one friendship or non-platonic connection that I am in. And that coupled with people-pleasing tendencies, which were also developed from childhood, that's another story. And people-pleasing is obviously, I acknowledge, very common among a lot of people. But I would say those tendencies are way better for me now than they were, like, let's say last year. So I'm very happy with that progress. So yeah, my point is this whole year, especially the second half, I feel like the universe has been really forcing me to look at these imbalances and how they don't serve me moving forward. And that has involved leaving behind quite a few connections, including close friendships. And this already like kind of started in the start of the year, but I think like everything just got solidified and like a lot of clarity came in towards the second half, particularly like honestly the past 2 weeks. And it used to be so scary for me, let's say like even last December or 2 years ago, it would be so scary for me to find out that because I'm always speaking with my high self and I get advice from my high self on like what's the next best step or thing to do in life for my highest good. And then when my high self used to say something like, oh, like, distance yourself from let's say this person, or like set a boundary and say no if you don't want to meet up with them and if it doesn't contribute to your well-being. And that would make me so scared. Like in the past, like I would just be like, oh my god, like universe, please don't ask me to do this. Like I do not want to set a boundary. Like I do not want to I would feel bad. Like I would displease the other person. Like all these things could go wrong. Why are you asking me to do this? But over time, like with practice, like it got way easier to set that boundary. And on that note, I've also kind of concluded that if one is staying in a connection where they feel like they are obliged to because they are benefiting that person and giving a lot to that person, therefore helping that person, but not receiving much back. I find that one thing that helped me with the false guilt of walking away from a connection or setting boundaries was realizing that sticking around because I believe that I can help someone is actually kind of condescending, because it is undermining their ability to help their own selves, even if in the moment it seems like they need your help. And of course I'm not saying like don't help your friends, don't support your friends, obviously like do that. But when it gets to the point where when it becomes too imbalanced and too, I guess, draining, maybe that could be the word, or just like you're not receiving as much happiness as this person is getting a lot of support from you. Yeah, so that really helped me to not feel bad to leave a connection that isn't serving me. And I find for the few connections that I had to let go of this year, yes, it was scary, first of all. Secondly, it was such a tricky balance, or it was, yeah, I guess it's a challenge at first, but it gets better with practice. Staying in tune with my sacral as much as with my heart chakra, that was something that I had to learn how to balance. And maybe you've heard me talk about sacral stuff before in my previous video, but sacral is essentially our chakra that governs our, like, how do I say, our sovereignty, the power we feel as an individual, like as a whole being, and just us and our stance basically, and also our self-esteem, worth, everything. Whereas the heart chakra is like the chakra that bridges like the 3D and the 4D/5D, and that is the chakra, the energy center through which this is all according to yogic philosophy and yogic science, by the way. It is the energy center through which we connect with other people and feel relational love. Also self-love, but yeah, relational love. And I find that for most of my life, up until maybe 1 or 2 years ago, I was very, very heart-led, but not very sacral-led. And that is also kind of hand in hand with the people pleasing, where like, let's say for example, like this year when I was in the midst of distancing from a connection, and I could strongly feel that the person on the other side was not happy at all with me or with the situation. And it was like I could feel that through my heart because I'm like so connected with this person. And yeah, I guess it took a lot to kind of acknowledge that, but also tune in as much to my sacral as much as I was already in my heart, so that I can like reconnect with my self-esteem of like of me deserving to move on from a connection like that so that I can make space for more meaningful and authentic and aligned connections to come into me. And I feel like overactive heart chakras could apply to a lot of empaths as well. Anyways, so yeah, essentially what I'm trying to say is when it comes to boundary setting, at least for me, keeping in touch with the sacral is really important. Okay, so I hope I've said everything already about the first part of my earlier sentence, equal give and take. So once again, that sentence I was telling myself this morning was I deserve equal / balanced give and take with people who show me love, appreciation, and honoring. So on to the next bit, show me love and appreciation. Like, what does that mean? So I've been having big realizations lately, I'd say in the past like 2 to 4 months, of how much I value expressions of love and appreciation and not just energies of love and appreciation. Because, and I wonder if other empaths can relate to this as well, but since empaths and perhaps HSPs, highly sensitive people, feel everything, including energies from like people that they're interacting with, whether they're in the same room or not, they can tell if somebody loves them and if somebody hates them and if someone is like repelled by them. So, and then sometimes when we recognize that feeling of love, of course, like, I've always been grateful for it. But then the problem arises when there are feelings of love, but for some reason or another, that person is unable to show it or to express it. And this can be the case, I guess, for friendships, but maybe it pops up more in like non-platonic connections. Like, say, for example, two people meet and then it's like a spark at first and like really crazy, deep, like magnetic, meaningful connection, and it's like a fire that blazes too fast and it burns out. And then typically what ends up happening is maybe, I don't know, someone gets like scared of how deep it is or scared of intimacy or commitment. Not to blame that person, by the way, because in dynamics like those, what I find is that it's always a mirroring. So it's not necessarily like one person's fault. It takes two hands to clap for any dynamic to happen. So my personal experience, and I say this from like having experienced those like multiple times myself. So I would say like, it is like those crash and burn type things are there or exist to help us look, like to mirror back to us wounds that need our attention. Normally it's inner child wounds that are asking for healing. And because of that, I've come to see that these people are really like guides in disguise or like teachers. And I can acknowledge that it was, of course, it's painful and sad, but I'm also so grateful. And if you've gone through similar situations like this and you're not really understanding or like absorbing what I'm saying, that's completely fine, because I've heard this sentence, like the concept of like, oh, these people are your guides, they're here to teach you something, mirror your wounds, blah, 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 help with your healing. I've heard that like at least 50 times for the past, I don't know, 5 to 6 years maybe. And I like did not understand, like I did not know. I just like didn't get it, and I think like only very recently I do. So I feel like, I don't know, it's an experiential learning thing probably. Anyways, going back to that crash and burn dynamic I talked about, what I hear from other people who go through these situations, and also like I can confirm it, is, well, like the person feels, I feel the love still from their counterpart, from the other person, but it either never gets expressed to the fullest that it can be, or it like stops being expressed because, I don't know, the person has well, it's already burned. So and then normally one person or both people might be left with like, what on earth was that? I thought they said they loved me, blah blah blah. And that might still be true. Like, they for all you know, they might not have necessarily stopped loving the other person. And then normally one person will still keep ruminating over the connection for like a long time after, or it'll take them a long time to get over that connection um because they feel the love. And even from a distance, when those two people are in separation, they still feel it energetically, psychically. Like, we honestly, I kind of believe that everyone is psychic. It's like painting. Like, the more you spend time with it, the more you can refine it. But energy doesn't lie. And everyone is so capable of picking up energies. Everyone has 6 senses, 7 senses, whatever. And I also feel like I'm saying this out of like confirmation with like people that I've like confirmed in real life with, that like, okay, I was feeling this, were you feeling this? And it's like there's that confirmation. So yeah, just to validate what I'm saying, just in case. So like I was saying, typically one person, I don't know if both people, but one person at least will take a long time still holding on energetically to the connection because they feel the love, but the issue is they are not shown love, or the love is no longer being expressed, at least not in like the 3D. And I feel like, yeah, so like a very recent thing is that I realized that I like value being shown and like expressed love, and not it just being like hidden. And there was this book, I forgot what it's called. Was it like Love Wins or something? Or was it by Bell Hooks? It was a Bell Hooks book about love. But there was a sentence there that I read during COVID, which in 2020, which said that love means nothing if it's not expressed. And when I read that, I was like, huh, that is pretty much like the root of a lot of dysfunctional families too, I suppose. I don't know, for example, when a parent like mistreats their child and they're like, oh, it's for your own good, something like that. But at the same time, I don't know if I like 100% agree with it, because I do still believe that like love does mean something even if it's not expressed. But it's like, which one do you value more? Which one do you like hold on to a connection for more? Like, do you hold on to it for love, or for love that is like expressed and shown consistently, if I might add? So yeah, why I bring this up is, well, I guess earlier an affirmation that I might use or might write down in a journal would be like, oh, I deserve love and appreciation in any connection. But now I'm kind of changing it to like, I deserve being shown love and appreciation. Oh my gosh, just like, okay, get specific, universe, I guess. And with that statement, I deserve to be shown love and appreciation, I don't necessarily mean or think that it means cutting out a person. Sometimes it means that, especially if it is like really not serving you, and like to the point that it's harmful to your mental health. Obviously, like, set boundaries and cut them off if you might. Another thing I see a lot for empaths too around me, and including me, and this could be also for men sometimes, so it's not just non-men, is having challenges with unconditional love. So for context, personally, I do resonate a lot with the idea of unconditional love, and I do feel like it is the fabric of the universe. And I don't know, if you talk to any like heavy shroomer or someone who's done like an ayahuasca ceremony, they probably, like, the story I hear all the time is like, they'll just say and report like, oh, everything is love, like everything's just a fabric of love, like even anger is a shade of love. And I do see that, like, I quite resonate. And I believe that unconditional love just is, like, it just exists sewn into the fabric of the universe. And then on top of that, there just gets to be layers of like anger and guilt and shame and sadness and like blah blah blah, and like hatred and loathing. And all those layers slash illusions just kind of cover up the purity, the essence of unconditional love. So yeah, that's how I see it. But I like how that person put it, like, anger is a shade of love, and so is every other emotion, I suppose. So obviously all emotions are to be honored and validated. And I feel like unconditional love exists, and while relationships might be conditional, unconditional love isn't. And the way I see it is like this unconditional love is not the kind of love that necessarily exists in all relationships of like, oh, like it's a sweet fun time with you, and I like you, you like me, you make me happy, I make you happy. That can be like conditional love too. Sometimes they're lucky, sometimes they do feel the unconditional love, which is really nice. But to me, unconditional love is essentially just recognizing that we are like on some deeper or higher level, like we are all one and connected at the core, and deep inside, no one is really separated from one another. And I feel like my whole life I've been like tapped in, should I say my whole life? Well, in the past, I don't know, since I was 18 or 19, I guess. I feel like I've been very deeply tapped into that feeling and that concept. Maybe because my Jupiter is in Pisces, so that's the way I see it. So I don't know, even if two people in like some deep non-platonic connection, let's say, like even if they like part ways, I still believe that the unconditional love can exist, as in like one person's soul honoring the other person's soul, even if they're not like in a sweet romantic love anymore. Um, yeah, they just feel like two different types of love. And I think in like other languages, there are multiple names for different types of love. So there's, I don't know, maybe in English there's two, like agape love. I forgot what the others are. Eros, I guess. So yeah, I feel like one word love is like too undescriptive to describe like the different types of love. So yeah, I guess my thing to learn, because I was already so tapped into like unconditional love and that idea, my thing to learn over the past a few years was to strengthen more of like that individuality, and basically recognize when I need to take a step back, or like if the boundary needs to be set, essentially. And to realize that prioritizing myself is, if needed, is very worth it, even if it might potentially upset another person or ruin peace and harmony and a relationship with another person, because you matter most. Also, going back to the sacral and heart chakra thing, like balancing both of them, um, the reason why I was so tempted, so it was a little bit challenging for me to like tap more into my sacral, was because like when that sacral is not strengthened enough, and that's one of like the lower three chakras as well. So the first main ones are like the root to the sacral and then the solar plexus. So these three lower chakras are responsible for like making you feel safe in your body and more grounded. And so the reason why for some people it might be just easier to like stay in their heart and just like keep the peace and harmony and like not upset other people, um instead of feeling into their lower chakras, is because they didn't really grow up feeling safe most of the time. Didn't really grow up feeling safe to own their needs or to like displease, I don't know, an authority figure, and to be themselves and to be authentic. Anyways, that's just a side note. But going back to the topic of unconditional love, one thing that really helped me balance this out and know, for example, like let's say you break up or you leave someone and you move on, and in the process of moving on you keep going back to like, oh my god, like I still love this person, but at the same time I know that they're not good for me, this connection doesn't serve me, and it's like the head and the heart are like not aligned, and sometimes it almost feels wrong to stop loving a person that you used to love a lot. And yeah, I don't know, I totally get that. And one thing that's really helped me feel just like morally better, and also yeah, just like better overall, is this reminder that actually Oren Harris on Instagram, he's like a spiritual influencer, but he spews so much wisdom, and I love listening to him speak. Like it's really heart and eye and mind opening. So one of his like thoughts one day was that people, the other person, or people in general, people deserve your love, but not necessarily your time and energy. And that really, really helped me, because that does resonate with me, that like everyone deserves love from anyone. Everyone deserves love from me, I guess. And that is kind of sounds like unconditional love to me. And but then they don't necessarily deserve my time and energy, which are two very precious things also. So that really helped me distinguish a more aligned heart set and mindset together. Yeah, I guess like I don't know if other empaths can resonate with this, but in the process of moving on from a connection that one has just left, I feel like the hardest things to grapple with is my heart set and my mindset. It's like, because obviously I don't want to like spend every day like angry or sad, right? I will literally do anything I can to like raise my vibration high so I can like, I don't know, enjoy life again, because life is short. But yeah, but then obviously sometimes like intrusive thoughts can come in, or like their energy, the other person's energy might come in, and it's like you might think of them and it's like, like, and then that kind of, and then sometimes that soften, a dog is barking, sometimes that softens your heart and you're like, oh my god, like, maybe I should go back to this person, yada yada yada. So this, yeah, so it's like, the heart set and the mindset are still like wobbly, and it's hard to keep them aligned for like consistently. So I feel like this statement really helped me personally. Okay, I guess I can move on to the third part of the sentence, which was, I deserve to be shown, what was it, honoring? Yes, honoring. So what does that mean? Like when I wrote that down, I basically referred to honoring of boundaries. And this, again, involves platonic and non-platonic connections. But just in the past month, I find that the universe has been inviting me to almost turn my back on any friendship that doesn't honor my boundaries. Or for example, like a friend takes it personally if you, I don't know, say you're too tired to like go out or something. And I've been like really so much more comfortable this year doing that, just saying like, no, I don't think I can do this, or I don't have the capacity to do this. And I never outright say no. I know on Instagram you can see all these like psychologists saying like no by itself is an answer. And while maybe that's true in some situations, depending on how you see it, but for me, like if you're my friend, obviously I wouldn't just tell you no, I would tell you that like the reason why, and I would explain why. And yeah, and I might also thank you for your suggestion, or like for asking me to do this favor, if it's a favor. Yeah, because I would not want to leave a friend feeling like they don't matter, like their request doesn't matter. So yeah, this year I've been like communicating that quite openly, and like just easier and easier. And I mean, I feel like it definitely is like a self-prioritization thing, like putting yourself first, like, whether you're able or having capacity to do something or not, having energy or time or not to do something, and just being honest about that, and not saying yes when you really mean no, even if it might upset the other person. And I've done it many times this year, and it was so nice to see that people actually don't take it very personally. But some people do, some friends do. And it's not gonna lie, it's like a little hurtful sometimes when they do take it personally. But I feel like, yeah, I've definitely been like trying to remind myself that if someone takes my boundary personally, especially when it's already said and communicated in like in the most loving way that I can, it is not my problem. um so yeah, so So there's no reason for me to take that personally and to be hurt or whatever. And honestly, some people or friends like realize it straight away, like when they're taking a boundary that's been set by their friend, when they take it personally and they realize that they've taken it personally. Sometimes it takes a while, right? To like, I mean, it's normal to get triggered in the moment, because I get it that people feel like a sense of rejection sometimes. Yeah, I totally know how that feels. So yeah, like that little trigger is so valid and understandable, but also a lot of them, and like maybe I'm one of them too, I don't know, are able to just like be aware of the trigger, and they might make up for it later on by like reconnecting with you and just like, you know, still being like kind and lovely to you. So that's fine, because I probably have done that myself in my life before as well. And so it's nothing to hold the person against if that's their first initial reaction to when you set your boundary. But then there are other people who kind of take it personally on a deeper level, and they do act out, which is unfortunate. And in those times, it has, yeah, I guess it did hurt more, because I realized that they would rather have the connection, the friendship not last because of this boundary that was set. And so, in other words, I suppose you could say that the person doesn't support you putting yourself first and prioritizing yourself, which I think is very important. And the reason why in that sentence, I say I deserve equal give and take with people who show me love, appreciation, and honoring. I say "and" like for all those three things, because a friend who doesn't honor your boundaries could also at the same time be showing you a lot of love and appreciation. And I realized that I deserve connections, authentic, meaningful connections that show me all three and not just one of the three. So yeah, like, so I've kind of realized that if a connection is lacking one thing, then it is pretty much the safe and self-loving thing to do to let it go. And oh yeah, so going back to like the dysfunctional family thing, like I guess another way this plays out is for the sentence like love means nothing if it's not expressed. I guess when like love is withheld from a parent, for example, in order to like punish a child or something, and that withholding of love it's like, you know, the love is there. Obviously a parent loves their child most of the time, right? But to withhold the love like purposefully, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying here, but I guess I was just like trying to connect the dots and using that scenario as an example. And obviously it's a case-to-case basis on whether you feel like cutting someone out, or just turning your back and walking away, or leaving the door open. It really depends on each person's gut feeling. I tend to be very, very, very flexible, especially if it's someone that I've already like gotten close to and like know quite well. I do my best to be flexible. But yeah, so in the past 3 to 4 weeks, I feel like the universe has been showing me, or like asking me to reevaluate by bringing me, or like highlighting connections in my life that were not giving me one or all or two of those three things, or not showing them to me. And then that also actually got me thinking like, the fact that I'm like being shown all this right now, to like, it's literally like a sweep out, or just like a complete like final reevaluation before the year closes, just like of what I value and like what I'm willing to let go of in order to like make space for like much better things and friendships to come into my life. Anyway, it did get me thinking like, wow, is it possible that there are other connections in my life where I myself like dishonor someone else's boundaries as well, without knowing, or like unintentionally? And I realized that yes, that was the case for at least one connection. I feel like it might happen too for like the earlier dynamic I described between like two people who had like a crash and burn, like intense like flame love situation, and then they take long time to get over it after. And during that long time of energetic processing and like moving on and like trying to align your heart set and mindset, normally the person who, typically it's the empath, not always, but normally the person who like is the one waiting for connection or wanting the connection instead of wanting to run away from it, they pretty much would be having hopes and expectations placed onto the other person instead of seeing that person for who they really are and what they are able to offer and provide. And when I say they, I actually really mean I. And so that was something I realized. I was like, wow, like I have been playing a part in the suffering as well by keeping my expectations and hopes, like placing them on the other person, I suppose, to bring me that fulfillment instead of just like completely walking away to find the fulfillment elsewhere, or alternatively to find that fulfillment within myself. And I feel like placing expectations on someone who clearly cannot give you what you want, or maybe they've already outright said and set their boundaries, that is pretty much also like dishonoring someone's boundaries. So yeah, I realized that was a little epiphany that I had. And yeah, I'm thankful to be aware of it. And more than one psychic actually once told me before that ancestrally on the maternal side, there is this like generational wound or pattern where like the women tend to the women tend to stick with partners who are unable to fully provide what they need and desire, but they stick with them hoping and expecting that things will change, and kind of even romanticizing that my partner can't be everything I want, romanticizing that dissatisfaction, which further reinforces whatever low self-esteem that was like passed down generationally or like developed in childhood or something. So, and yeah, and that pattern, I mean, I'm assuming and I believe that like a lot of other people in my generation, it's kind of my thing to heal, I guess, and to break the pattern and the chain, which I'm happy to do that. I guess I kind of accepted like since 4 or 5 years ago that I would have like lessons in this area to go through and to learn before I can finally be like fully deeply happy and fulfilled in a balanced relationship. And that really depends a lot on on how much I fully believe that I deserve and how much equal give and take I am worth. It's not really dependent on like who the person is coming into my life. It really is like all dependent on me and how much I'm like willing to break the pattern by being discerning on like who I give my time and energy to and who I choose to invest energy into. So yeah, like even going back to the earlier thing, like, you know, like if, I don't know, let's say someone isn't giving you or showing you the love, appreciation, honoring that you deserve, it's not necessarily about, solution is not necessarily to cut the person out. Maybe it is if it's too toxic or hurtful, but it is more so just a matter of like where I'm choosing to invest my energy in. And I also feel like another thing about that ancestral dynamic I mentioned of staying with partners who can really fully meet your needs. I feel like a lot of people stay in dissatisfying relationships or situations or dynamics because they highlight the good parts, the good moments so much. And obviously if they're not satisfied relationship, it's not going to be like good all the way. It's just going to be like good here, good here, good here. Like it's just like highlighted, and like that is also, those moments are also the main things and the main memories that a person tends to hold on to, obviously after like a separation or like during the getting over process. And yeah, but I feel like if there's no like concrete taking account or like taking stock of like, okay, like what is what did I give here? What did I receive here? Like how, like, I don't know, if you want to be really methodical about it, like on this day, how much did I receive? How much did I get, kind of thing. Not to make it transactional, but just to like take a closer look at how balanced the connection was. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is a lot of people prolong the getting over process for far too long because they hold, even though they know in their mind that it was like a connection that they had to leave for their own good, but they energetically hold on to it with the hoping and waiting that one day maybe it'll magically all work out. So that there's that limerence, right? Limerence is essentially like strong, sometimes obsessive, like longing for someone whom you don't know whether like they reciprocate that or not. So yeah, I mean, to me, limerence is very much energetic. So yeah, they or we prolong the getting over process because we tend to highlight all the good memories, and sometimes, more often than not, tell ourselves that like, oh, but this person was so wonderful with me and we were such a great match and blah blah blah. But if it was so bad that you had, or toxic or dissatisfying that you had to leave it, then could those good moments possibly be like breadcrumbs that we're still like starving for as we're waiting and hoping, because we miss those good moments so much. So it's like we keep going back to those breadcrumbs, but there's nothing left. I also wrote this down in my journal. Me accepting breadcrumbs could be my inner child pining for consistent love and approval that I didn't get from caretakers. Ooh, which is kind of deep. Yeah. Yeah, and also just like realizing that that person, whoever that we were placing so much like expectation on and who couldn't give us what we wanted, like they deserve honoring also. Like they deserve their boundaries to be honored. And if it's the case for some people who realize that they, for example, met this person and had a crash and burn time with them, and it was during a moment where, or like during a time period where like neither of them were like really fully ready for, let's say, like a long-term relationship, let's say. If that is the case for those types of connections, I feel like it really helps me personally to like remind myself that it was never even aligned in the first place. Yeah, and whenever I remind myself that, I just kind of take a step back and ask myself like, oh my god, like how, like who even is this person that I invested so much of my time and energy into? Who even is this person? And the answer that kind of comes to me when I'm like in a totally aligned state is that this person was a teacher and a guide in disguise. And yeah, and if I never met them, I probably would never be like looking this closely at my patterns and at my wounds that I am healing more and more. And I feel like for some people it might be discouraging to find yourself in like a similar pattern over and over again. And I feel like that is actually okay. Like it's okay to end up in a similar pattern, to me, as long as one is going through it with awareness. And I think it's really easy to beat yourself up and be like, oh my god, I can't believe I attracted another unavailable person. But I think what matters most and what actually like genuinely makes me happy is that like each time, at least like ever since I like made a commitment to be like more and more aware of wanting to get out of this pattern, what I find that sometimes if a pattern or a cycle or wound is like really deep, like it takes a couple rodeo rounds. Like it takes a couple rounds with a couple different people to like slowly get out of the loop. So let's say for example, like this, I don't know, like it's like a spiral, right? So maybe the innermost ones will be the most painful because you have no idea what the heck is going on as you're like hurt and drowning in your emotions and everything, and like all your childhood wounds, core wounds. In this case, it would probably be like the core wound of I am not enough, which is actually turns out to be the most common core wound for a lot of people. I'm not enough, therefore I'm not worthy of so and so and so, including like relationships with available people, so and so and so. That just is like, it just happens to be the core root of a lot of problems. So yeah, like I said, the innermost spirals would be the most hurtful, and most heartbreaking, I suppose. And then let's say you get over that and then you meet someone else And turns out it's the same kind of pattern, but it's like it's more on the outer layer. So one is going through it with a lot more awareness, and it might still hurt, it might still be annoying and frustrating, but slightly less than the previous one because we've learned lessons, right? And this, I guess that's why like reflecting is so important to me, and especially like just self-reflecting. Just growth makes things, I don't know, self-reflecting, awareness, all of that makes life so much easier and allows you to be so much kinder with yourself and more loving with yourself and also with other people, and just more compassionate. So anyways, yeah, I guess my point is like it's so important to not be angry at yourself if you find yourself in a similar pattern. But yeah, because that doesn't really help. Self-loathing doesn't help. But the question of how can I don't know, improve this or make this better moving forward, that would help. And yeah, so eventually the spirals go to the outer and outer layers, where maybe the final one doesn't really hurt a lot at all, but it's like it's still annoying, just like, oh my god, I have to do this again. But it's like you don't feel hurt and you don't feel like your self-worth is like plummeted or anything. And then eventually like you cycle off and like the pattern heals and you're done with the healing. And obviously I'm not saying that there's an end to the healing journey. I personally feel like self-love journey is like a never-ending thing, and it goes on for like beyond this lifetime into other lives. But for this particular lesson that your soul wants to learn at this period in your evolution, that is, yeah, like could use a couple like rounds until it cycles off, and then congratulations. But yeah, that's kind of like what I felt with the last cycle, to be honest. So like honestly, this morning I woke up and I was kind of feeling a little like, I was congratulating myself, let's just say. And in case this resonates with you, it doesn't have to, but I'm just putting it out there. Talking consistently with my spirit guides, my guardian angels, whatever you want to believe in, the universe, anything, and like just asking them for their support, like consistently, especially when the going gets hard, especially when it's the toughest to align your mindset and heart set, and like the confusion is like peak maximum. It really helps me to ask, like tune into my high self and ask what would they do now, like what would my high self do in this present moment, and just following that intuition moment to moment instead of like trying to see down the whole road of like what the immediate future will look like. I don't even know how tomorrow looks like anymore. Like I just literally follow my heart and my heart and my gut, because remember the heart chakra and the sacral chakra are both important. So I follow that intuition and I try to follow my high self guidance as much as I can as each present moment passes. So yeah, like I said, that person, the other person being like serving as a guide in disguise. What I meant was like a guide to bring you home to yourself. So yeah, I do have to say that my healing and my self-worth, self-love, all of that would not have improved this much if it weren't for that teacher, for that person. So that's what I meant, just to clarify. And yeah, just giving thanks that that connection has served its purpose, which was that teaching and that healing, really makes the letting go and the moving on like so much easier. And what else? Another tip I have actually, especially for empaths, that has really helped me, particularly for the moving on, getting over, letting go period, is setting intentions either internally or out loud to call your energy and your self-power, whatever you want to call it, your sovereignty, your energy back home to you from anywhere and anyone that you might have left it with. So personally, I can do this anytime, especially if I feel like suddenly, I don't know, I feel someone sending energy my way or like thinking of me, because when you think of someone, you send them energy. And if it feels overwhelming and it's kind of like mixing a bit too much into my own thoughts, into my own energy space, and yeah, we don't need that 24/7. We don't need that a lot. So yeah, I might say this affirmation when that is happening, or actually I use it most often like right before I drift off to sleep when I'm in bed. And the affirmation is just, I call back my energy to myself, any energy that I may have left with anyone or any situation or any place. So I say that, and it like works so well, because ever since I started doing that, like I've been sleeping like a lot more peacefully, and I wake up like a lot more energized. Because otherwise, especially if you're like very sensitive to energies and things, and if you're an empath, when I sleep, at least, my energy being elsewhere kind of like disallows me and this body to fully recharge and revitalize myself, which is why, so I'm like in multiple places at once, basically multiple like dimensions or whatever. And so that's why when I wake up, sometimes I might be really tired or just feeling like that sleep could have been much better. But yeah, so ever since I started having this practice, like it's like sleep has really improved a lot for me. Can't turn on the ring light because it's getting dark, but I wanted to mention two other things that I forgot. Going back to caretakers or like whatever experience that you've had in childhood that like contributed to your wounds and things, I just wanted to also add that caretakers, adults, and yeah, just everyone are always doing their best at all times from wherever they are at. And so I just wanted to clarify, I guess, that like I wasn't saying the previous things to blame caretakers. It is just an explanation of like where certain wounds in a lot of people and adults, where they truly come from. It's from early childhood. That just is the case. And yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole that I have gone down before. Just the whole process, the whole healing process of like feeling upset and like injustice or like anger at whatever happened during childhood, but then using that anger not as a state to dwell in and to stagnate in and to be addicted to, which, and to, as a reason or excuse to harbor like resentment or bitterness towards like, I don't know, your authority figures or like caretakers in the past. It's more so like rage releasing, like conscious releasing of rage and anger, like deep-seated anger, I found to be really cathartically helpful and really like just helps me release a lot. And once all that anger is released, that's when like true forgiveness can happen, and peace can, like inner peace can be like made, I suppose. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that. Hope I didn't forget anything else. But yeah, that's all I have today. I hope 1 or 2 people found this helpful. I know this will only resonate with like a handful of people, but still just wanted to put it out there, because I know that if I've gone through these experiences and things and like challenges, I'm sure I can't be the only one. I feel like I've reached this point in like my healing journey in this aspect of my life where this particular aspect of my life where I am like excited to spiral off, to cycle off, whether it's to like the next level of healing or to cycle off the whole entire spiral and loop. And I just feel really excited because I know that I've been working on this healing for so long, like probably, yeah, I guess you could say my whole life, but consciously it would be like 6 to 7 years. So I just feel very just very grateful and satisfied and like excited for like all the abundance that is to come. And okay, yeah, I got a little bit emotional there, but yeah, so yeah, just looking forward overall, and like I'm just so grateful that this is happening like at the end of this year as well. Yeah, it's just such a good way to close out this year, and I don't know, make way, make space for, oh, another thing, oh my god, I keep like thinking of like things that I want to say. So I wanted to mention that the reason why, okay, so like why anger release is like helpful and important and stuff, and um yes, anger is a shade of love, like I said earlier, and it can be, you know, so helpful for certain things, like I don't know, revolutions, like against systems that are like not helpful for the greater good and things like, you know, all that Aquarian type stuff. Like I kind there's a part of me, the Aquarius parts of me, that do appreciate that, like anger for improvement and for justice basically. But yeah, I don't right now, at least at this moment, I don't have like a ton to say on like that wider scale, but at least in terms of like closer one-on-one relationships and friendships. Please excuse me, I think the tears just wanted to like still keep coming. But I know a lot of people don't they just think or feel that it's unnecessary to forgive, and like not everyone deserves forgiveness, and like that I completely understand that. Like there's no use forcing yourself to forgive anyone if you're not ready for it. But for me, I feel like I do my best to prioritize forgiveness no matter how angry or upset I once was at a person at any point in my life, because I do generally feel like holding like if there's no forgiveness, there's basically that bitterness and resentment that I keep holding on into inside, and that is kind of like a secret poison almost that does eat you up inside. And mainly, long story short, it blocks my manifestation abilities, and I really care about that. I really care about being able to manifest as freely and as abundantly as I want. So like why wouldn't I go through the healing process of forgiveness, like if I can, if I have the means to, and if I have the capacity, like the emotional and mental capacity. So yeah, I've just experientially realized that bitterness and resentment really does not help. Like there have been times where I have like deliberately wanted to hold a grudge, and I'll try and like, yeah, like I don't know, maybe I'll do it for like maximum a few days, and then I can't do anymore because it is just so tiring to let an external situation or person have that much effect on your own joy and like love towards yourself. And so then in order to not feel that grudge and resentment anymore, then that's when I'm like kind of called or pushed or forced to like go inward and like see what this anger is like pointing at inside me, and also how I can possibly forgive this person. And normally if it is like a prolonged type of anger or resentment, normally what lies under that prolonged feeling is grief that is asking to be processed. And where there's grief, a lot of compassion is due. So yeah, that's just another little thing. It's really the grief that needs to be felt. So yeah, there's all these different things, or long story short, I kind of see like anger or any triggers, basically triggers or anger, as indicators or like arrow signs to like look this way, like look inside, like this is what needs healing. And yeah, it's pretty much that. I just see them as like helpful, like these more difficult emotions as helpful indicators as to like where inside me needs loving right now. And that, if that sounds like shadow work to you, it actually is. So yeah, and I do I talk more about this in like other videos too of what was it? I think it was the loneliness video. I might put it up here. But there I go into more depth and detail about how I like face my shadows to transmute them. In my other videos I also talk about them. But yeah, if you're, I also do like shadow work healing with clients one-on-one. So my website, as always, has all these services, including channeling, spirit guide channeling, shadow work, energy healing, all of that. So yeah, okay. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful end of the year. Bye!